Incompetence Pod.
Welcome to the Perpetual Incompetence Podcast, a journey in competitive self-improvement.
Join us as we endeavor to improve our lives by competing in a series of low-stakes challenges.
In each episode, we will come up with a challenge and then define the rules or metrics for victory.
We'll have 2 weeks to do our best, and at the end, one of us will be crowned victor. Hi, I'm he who dangles, melodious warbler Mike Picasso Collins, the saddest finder, a.k.a. Lil Seeky Boy, the songsmith's revenge.
Hello, I'm the Slumberjack, the Dashing Brogue, the Taste Bud Traveler, Dan Collins, the Wheat Treater.
And I'm the Sugar Shunner, Planet Pusher, and Postal Pod Driver, Travis Gazellicus Brabin, the bearer of the Incompetent Cup of Iridescent Splendor. We each have one idea for a challenge for us to attempt in the next 2 weeks. After we've all presented, we'll decide whose idea is the best. Who wants to go first? All right, I'll go first.
Excellent.
We have done a kind of a variety of challenges over the last couple weeks / months. But we haven't done a lot to, I think, make our brains stronger. And I think our brains need to be stronger and just better. We should get better brains.
Yeah,
Our brains are real bad.
Yeah. And I've heard, and I think this is true.
Lackluster.
Yeah. Just real terrible. I think one way that we can improve our brains is just by reading a lot. Just read a bunch of words and, get some new ideas and thoughts and basically improve our brains by reading the output of other people's brains. So I think for the next 2 weeks, we should just see who can read the most. Or I think listen to on books the most.
Okay.
I was just going to ask if we could do audiobooks because I would be very stoked about doing that. But I don't know about sitting and reading a book.
Yeah, I think both are okay. I think the idea would be just the most pages of literature consumed.
Yeah. I don't think I would. I don't think I can hang with you, Travis. Travis is a voracious reader.
I mean, I think you can take that challenge upon yourself.
That's true. I do know how to read.
Other reasons why this would be a good challenge is I think I always get like a boost of productivity and energy after I have like read a bunch of stuff. I think Mike, in the past, you and I have talked about, particularly when reading like not like self-help, but like just books written by people that have interesting ideas and approaches, and the new concepts generally spurs more creativity and productivity in me. So I think we could try to get some of that. Try to just ingest a lot of information and thoughts and then see what kind of output or what kind of results that creates.
I like this. I go through stints where I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I've been out of that for a little while now. I should get back into it. I always feel more productive when I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I made the decision a little while ago that I was going to start listening to audiobooks instead of podcasts all the time. And I found a free one on Spotify that was Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And I listened to the entirety of that, but that's like one of the most depressing books.
Yes, it is. That's what I was just gonna say.
It was not a enjoyable thing that I did.
Yeah,
They don't do the
bummer.
monster mash in that one.
No, it's like the whole book is I feel like it's like fine tuned to make you feel as bad as possible about about humanity.
Yeah, it's like not even like scary. Like there's aspects that are kind of freaky, and I think they're scarier back in the day when it was kind of more taboo, all the stuff. But like, it's just a real bummer.
Yeah, like Dr. Frankenstein's a horrible person. His monster murders a bunch of innocent people. It's just like, and then like they talk in depth about how they feel and how bad and how depressed they are. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and say I do not recommend that book.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you got that one out of the way, and you can do better ones.
Yeah. I'm just going to rehash one that I had presented not that long ago. I want to put this out there so that you guys are aware, because I might have a bit of an advantage on whatever we do. I do have the next 2 weeks off work, so I'm going to be completely open to spend as much time on these things as I want. But having said that, I think we should explore the world around us and go exploring. If you recall when I presented it last time, it's about not only exploring geographically around you, it's about exploring, a museum. Just get out there and discover, just plant your flag in places around. Just go explore, go find cool things.
Just find wonder in the places around you.
Yeah.
Experience the world around you.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, I still like that as a concept. The thing you mentioned is a very real advantage, I think.
Yeah. And I acknowledge that, and I don't know, we could put like a handicap on me or something if we wanted to, but I also, it would be super cool if I could explore for the podcast as I am free, and it would get me out of the house, so I wouldn't be sitting and wasting my vacation time.
That's also a real problem.
Yeah.
I like that. It will be difficult to compete, but it would also be an excuse to force me to get out and do things, which I think would be good. So
Sure.
So the other day I was I don't remember, I watch too much YouTube. It's a thing, it's a problem. But I was watching a thing about Mr. Rogers, right? Mr. Rogers, the old TV show, right?
Yeah.
I know you guys know what I'm talking about.
Everybody knows Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. So Mr. Rogers is like a super nice guy, right? And one of the things that people that knew him were said it was like one of the things that basically everybody said about him, among other things, that why he's such a nice guy, is when he was talking to you, he made you feel like you were the most important person in the world, that he just wanted to listen to you and be present and just that kind of thing, and just was very sincere. And I think that's something that I can definitely try to improve on. That is to say, be more present when I'm talking to other people. You know what I mean? So what this would be challenging us to, when we're having interactions with other people, is to just really hone in and be uncomfortably present with people. Not uncomfortably present, but I know for me, this would be very good. It'd be a good thing to do, especially for like my kids, because there's definitely times when like they're like, "Hey, Dad, hey, Dad," and I'm like, yeah, what, I'm drinking coffee, so make it quick, but I think that is a very important life skill. Also, if you want people to feel good when they're around you, which I think most people generally would like.
Sure.
I think it's a skill that we can. I'm not sure how we would do a metric on it, but maybe we could just discuss how we did.
Mike, sorry, could you say that over again? I was miles away. I was focusing on something else. Could you repeat?
I was looking at my phone. There was something really funny on my phone.
And see, that was genuinely like hurtful for a second. So, but anyway, that's my challenge.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely value there, and it's easy to blame all of that on like cell phones reducing everybody's attention and capacity for listening. But there's like an element of laziness and an element of choice in that too. It's like we do choose to only halfway pay attention to things, which means we are zero paying attention to things.
Yeah.
It's like been essentially proven that you can't multitask. Your brain can only focus on one thing. So whenever you put up the facade of like, oh, I'm listening, but I'm just doing something else, like you're not listening.
Yeah.
So that is something. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys too, but I know people that are like that are super present when you're talking to them, and like, wow, this person's great. They
it can
really
be kind of uncomfortable.
It sure can, yeah.
Yeah. And I know people like that too.
Ease up, fella. I'm not that interesting. Like,
I think like to be like that, you have to have so much patience, because there's so many times like I'm in a conversation with somebody and I realize like, man, I want to get out of this conversation. But I don't know how to, like I don't want to be present. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like I'd just be pretending.
Yeah,
I
and
think
there are some people that I doubt it's intentional, but like some people will essentially hold you hostage in conversation.
Yeah.
And that like once they get you in there, and if you're not like courageous enough to like give yourself an escape route or like pull a ripcord, they'll just like you'll just stay there forever.
But hey,
well,
maybe that's
you
kind
know,
of the thing, though, right?
yeah.
Maybe
Well,
like you get to know
think
this person.
Well, and also, I mean, being present in a conversation doesn't mean that you have to be taken advantage of. You know what I mean? Like that's also something people should work on. Is like people don't have to hold you hostage, but for like people that matter.
Well, okay, but I mean, how did Mr. Rogers get out? Did he just like if somebody started talking to him, did he just spend the day with them? Like,
I'm sure you could find a way to make it work. there's a middle ground here, and maybe that's what we need to find out.
The metric or the terms of success is a little hard to quantify, and we've done that before. But this one, I don't even know how you can make an argument for like I listened real good.
Well, I mean, it could be kind of interesting to see how we try and spin it. Listen, let me tell you how good I listened.
No, stop talking. Listen to how good I listened.
Yeah, that's a good point. How did you have a concept for a metric on this one?
I sure didn't.
That seems like the trickiest part of that one.
Well, I don't know. I mean, are you guys leaning towards this one? Because we could probably figure one out.
I would say I'm not leaning towards it. No, but
okay,
I mean, we'll do whatever. They're all good options. I think that mine is easiest to quantify and has a similar degree of value. Easy to quantify is a nice thing to have for a challenge, but it doesn't have to be that way.
No, well, I think some of our best challenges have been kind of hard to quantify.
That's true. We can. I mean, honestly, we could probably just come back and then just talk about it and then figure out who was the best.
That's actually very true. Like, I think it's generally made pretty clear whether or not you made the proper effort or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think with that one being on vacation, I'm at a disadvantage because
probably
I'm not going to be interacting with as many people.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is one that would be a real self-improvement, It'd be a very good thing to do.
All right. Well, all right. Which one are we going to do? So we got reading books, exploring, and Mr. Rogers.
Yes. I like mine. Are we going to do
we all like ours, so we've established that.
Okay, well, I guess if I have to pick between you guys, I think I'm going to have to go with Travis's because I think Dan has an unfair advantage for the exploring one. And I mean, as much as I'd like to go and do stuff, I just don't think it's possible with our schedule. But I can, like, while I'm at work, listen to books.
Yeah, I think I would lean away from Dan's also. So having to choose between your two, I would probably pick Mike's. I think that I would love to do those things, and it would give me good impetus to explore and take the kids out and do stuff. But I also worry that would just turn into one where Dan would like go out and like, tour the canals in Venice or something. And then Mike and I would be like, well, we had to go to work, so we didn't do any of that. So I would lean towards Mike's.
All right. We have discussed putting on handicaps or like you could, I don't know, whatever. That's fine.
I don't want your handouts, Dan.
So I think Dan, you essentially get to pick.
I was kind of leaning towards Travis's actually anyways even over my own because I that is something as I said I've actually was kind of wanting to do is get some literature in my brain.
And maybe Mike, maybe we can all read a book on being present in conversation
and about exploration too.
That's true.
Or we can read Mr. Rogers' biography, which has to exist. That has to be out there somewhere.
I mean,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I mean books, like Butterfly in the Sky.
You can
Yeah,
fly twice as high.
yeah. Take a look; it's in a book, so you can really go anywhere with reading.
No, keep going. Oh wait.
You don't have to. You don't even have to leave your living room. You can explore the whole world and beyond, and learn all there is to learn through
You can meet
books.
all sorts of characters and situations like Geordie LaForge.
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, we deviated from the song. I thought you were gonna keep going with the song.
I could only remember Butterfly in the Sky, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. But I mean, I feel like you get the point of what I was trying to say.
All right,
All
we can
right,
do that
yeah,
one.
books. So are we
All
good
right.
with that metric of pages? I mean, there's the problem of like you could go out and buy like
Well,
a dime-sized book and just read 1,000,000 pages.
yeah. Well, here's the question though. So we're saying audiobooks are fine. How do
Yes.
we quantify? Is it going to be like time listened to?
Um,
I mean, audiobooks have pages still, right? Don't they?
well, I mean,
No.
you can look
So,
up the book and see how many pages the book is that you're listening to.
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose.
I think
Or
that would be
like
the preferred
words.
approach because like
Yeah.
time listen, I usually listen at like 1.2 speed or whatever. So I would listen to more, but in the same amount of time.
Okay.
Because I feel like
Yeah. All right.
we're all going to be doing audiobooks, right?
At least
Well,
partially.
yeah, partially. I'm in the middle of a couple books right now. I'm always in the middle of like 10 books at once. I very rarely finish books, but I often start them.
Oh, that's horrible. I can't. Really?
Yeah, I do.
When I
That's the thing
start
I
a
do.
book, I have to finish that one book before I can even think about another book.
Yeah, I have a pile of books next to my bed right now.
Good for you, Dan.
That sounds
I
stressful. How do you keep track of the plot in each of the books?
Well, I often listen to so I got like one fantasy novel, I got like one self-help book, and then I got one I guess two self-help books going right now. Yeah. I guess right now I really have three, and then I have like a comic book that I was reading. Because I'm an adult.
I mean, that brings up a good question. Do comic books count?
Of course they count. You read them, right?
I think we should say no to comic books.
Fine.
Unless we say
you could,
like one page
could
counts
have 12 words.
every 20 pages of a comic book equals one page or something like that. We'd have to say.
I vote no. I think we just drop those.
Just drop comics. You can read them, but they don't count.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's fine. All
Okay.
right. I think we're good. So then we'll just do our best estimate of how many pages we've read then, kind of, if we're doing audiobooks.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, now honorific.
Yeah. The Booksterino.
I mean, bookworm.
Reading Rainbow.
Bookbreaker.
Literary Leviathan.
That's not bad.
Librarian.
The Libarbarian.
Ooh,
that's cool.
I like that one. Libarbarian.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue though.
Libarbarian.
I think if you put an R after that, the library.
But if you just like Libarian, they just think that you spelled it wrong.
Yeah.
As Mike quietly Googles how to spell library.
When there's somebody could look to see how to spell it at the library.
I mean, yeah, I was right. Librarian.
Library.
You put an R after that, the where you would not put a B in the barbarian. Barbarian.
Library.
It's like a LI-barbarian.
Librarian.
I don't know. I don't think it. Well, let's keep going.
The more we say it, the less I like it.
Yeah.
Let's move along.
How about the Leapin' Librarian?
Well, we had the Yumpin' Yodeler. The Leapin' Librarian.
That was last season.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's all blending into one. Bookmaster. Wasn't that a movie? I think it was.
Page Master.
Page Master.
That's actually pretty. Sounds pretty cool. Page Master.
Was it Page Master or am I misremembering?
I think so. Yeah. With the little talking books, right?
Yeah, the Page Master.
Yeah.
Bookworm.
There was a book in there that was like Frankenstein. Do you remember that in the movie?
Yes, I do. I remember that now that you said that.
We've come full circle. But I'm trying to think, like, there's a lot of directions we could go here. Words. What's the lexicon?
Abracadabribarian.
The Lexiconquistador.
Ooh, I like that one too. Lexiconquistador.
That's fun to say.
Yeah, it is.
Lexiconquistador.
Oh man, you're good at this, Travis.
Thanks.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, I can't. I take. Well, you guys are coming up with bad ones. I'm thinking of good ones.
No. Okay.
It takes time.
Piecing together. I don't know, man. Lexiconquistador that might be the best one I've ever heard. It's right up there with Gazellicus.
Yeah, that high bar for success.
Let's throw out a bunch of bad ones first. The page turner, the book boy,
Book bandito,
page pounder,
bookshelf, the bookshelf,
shelf shoveler, the margin master,
fiction fella,
the rowdy reader,
the Dewey Decimal Sorcerer, Dewey's Delinquents.
How about just Dewey?
Just Dewey. Dreamboat Dewey. Lexiconquistador. Come on, guys.
I mean, that's pretty good. Where'd that come from? That's a clever turn of phrase.
I don't know. My brain.
Portmanteau, I guess.
Wow. Do you even need this challenge? You already got a brain, apparently.
Well, I need more words. I need to refill. I've just emptied it.
That's true.
Ooh. What? The Scarecrow. He needed a brain, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Scarecrow. Scarecrow.
Yeah. Mudflap.
Mudflap. Yeah. I was trying to think about what animal you were saying instead of gazelle. Gazelle man.
Gazelle man. Could be owl man. Owls are very
studious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those. How did that happen? Like, why were owls determined to be like smart? Like they
actually, I knew this at one point. It's some sort of pagan thing where owls are like the wise. They carry the wisdom of the gods.
I think in many cultures they're considered wise.
Yeah.
I think presumably because there's like big eyes and they're always like looking at you. They have a knowing gaze.
I was asking questions. Who?
That's true.
That's a good joke. That's a good joke. It's dead there. Lexiconquistador. I think.
Yeah, let's just go with that. We're definitely not going to get any better than that.
All right. Do we do like a dash in between, or is it just all one word?
I think all one word. I think
all one word.
That's cooler.
Yeah,
that's more our style.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Cool.
We don't want it to be that easy to read, I think. Yeah. What's forecast? I don't think I can stand up to Travis in this one.
I mean, it's
Travis
just reading, right? We
I mean,
listen to books and then read books.
Yeah, but I have what the scientists call slow brain.
The newly defined medical term, slow brain.
All right, how about you have to actually absorb the information. I was just thinking I could have like 5 different devices playing different books.
Yeah, some integrity is required.
Like while like reading a book at a physical book.
Well, I think time. We've established like there's this is a gentleman's agreement to
yeah. You could cheat at all of these. I will as a means of hopefully leveling the playing field. So there's Audible, I think we all use, but there's an app called Libby that if you have a library card, you can get access to their digital catalog and you can get audiobooks and regular books that way for free. So if you guys don't want to have to spend money, you can also just like check out audiobooks from your local library.
I think there's also a bunch of free ones on Spotify. Like classic books like Frankenstein are on Spotify.
Yeah. There's a bunch of them just on Audible too.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of just free ones.
If you have an account, you can.
I don't have Audible.
All right.
You get it, dude. Especially for this.
Yeah. You should like free trial it or something.
Okay, cool. So we have our challenge, we have our metric, we have our honorific. Let's do this.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere. Friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I just want to say thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you tell a friend about it. If you enjoy my singing, let me know, and I can send you a direct message with your favorite song. Let's get back to the show. Okay, bye.
Welcome back to the Perpetual Incompetence podcast. As a reminder, we recorded the first part of the podcast 2 weeks ago, and since then, we've been trying to read as much as possible. Let's get into it. How did this one go for you guys?
I mean,
it was a pleasant thing to do, I think.
I like reading.
Yeah. Did you guys actually read?
I read one book, like one actual book, and then listened to a bunch of other ones.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for me winning this one, but I did read. I know how to read. I was reading. I read some things.
I think that was a prerequisite to this task.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I read some things. I also counted the stuff that I read to my kids because those are also books.
Sure.
Read stories every night. So
yeah, I'll allow it. That seems fair.
Okay, great. What was your guys' approach?
For me, it was just always be listening to a book as much as possible. I mean, I had like meetings and stuff at work. Obviously times when I had to be productive when I couldn't do the book listening. But beyond that, whenever possible, I was just trying to listen to a book, and I found that honestly, it made me very productive. Because you can't just like sit and watch TV. Like if your goal is to listen to a lot of books, you're gonna have to like listen and pay attention to it. But you can do something else while listening to it. So, you can be productive with your hands. You can make things, or you can clean, or you can do yard work or whatever. So I found that just the act of pursuing a high page count, I think overall made me more productive. And then as an added bonus, I got to enjoy a bunch of cool books.
Yeah, I did something similar. I don't know how productive I was. I think I ended up listening to most of them at my computer, and then I just was trying to find stuff to do on my computer, which always ended up just being video games.
Yeah.
So I play a lot of video games while listening to books, and then I struggled to find a video game that didn't require a lot of reading in it,
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I mostly just played video games and listened to it, or in the car. Or I discovered my Bluetooth headphones that I listen on my computer with. I can like walk around my house and my backyard with them. So that was kind of nice. I just did that for a little while. But I felt like I was sort of disconnected from the world. So I don't think I was listening to books constantly, but pretty solidly. I just sat around and listened to books. Yeah.
I definitely was less effective than you guys. I thought I had this one kind of in the bag because previously I've been able to listen to books on tape while I work. Because while I'm like coding, I kind of enjoy that. Listen to a good book or a good story, and then code. Unfortunately, these past 2 weeks have been like very. I've needed to get stuff done kind of days. So
Yeah.
I haven't been. So my ace in the hole, me listening to books at work, has kind of been a no show. It's been pretty minimal. So I think it's not going to be great for me. But I also the book that I picked to listen to, because I didn't get through it. I was listening to one. Was Master and Commander. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's like they made it into a movie. So the thing about that book is it's really interesting. It's good, but it's also kind of stuffy, old school kind of writing. I think it was only written in like the 70s or something like that, but they wrote it like it was written in like the 1700s.
Like a
And it's kind of
Herman Melville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to follow it. So I don't know, man. We'll see what the numbers are, but it ain't gonna be great. So
I kind of I didn't want to spend any money. I did make an Audible account, but I found out you only get one free book when you sign up for the free trial. So I only got one book from Audible, and then I just sort of tried to find where I could find free books, free audiobooks like on YouTube or Spotify, and it turns out that most of those are kind of not the best books.
So I know Master and Commander is a free book on Audible right now. That's where I was listening to it. So if you're in the mood for some adventure on the high seas, there you go.
If nautical how was it in SpongeBob? If nautical nonsense be something you wish.
Yeah. Yes.
Master and Commander.
It's not
yeah, so I basically ended up listening to a bunch of fairly, I guess, short-ish, crappy science fiction books.
Oh yeah. There are many of those. They're all free on Audible, and they're like, I don't know. Well, so there's some gems in there, I think, but many of them are not amazing.
I was judging them based on the like cover art, and I'd be like, oh, that looks like a cool like magical woman, you know, and she's got like this like wolf, and then she's like casting a spell. I'm like, yeah, cool. Nice. But then I ended up on two separate occasions jumping into werewolf romance novels.
Oh, sure.
So I dipped my toe into the werewolf romance genre of books.
Was it worth it?
You know, it wasn't as bad as you'd think. I don't think. I think that's enough for me. But you know, one of them was all right. The other one was pretty terrible. But you know, happy medium is just sort of bad, I guess.
Yeah.
I tried to sample a variety of different books, and like different genres, I guess. So did some, fiction, some fantasy, some nonfiction, some like, your regular like plain fiction, I guess. I don't know. Genre is a weird thing, but I tried to mix up my stuff to have, fiction, nonfiction, and like your like historical sort of information. I'm struggling to come up with the way these genres are actually laid out.
You got it, buddy.
Yeah, doing great. When we get into it, I'll run through the books, and it'll become more clear the variety that I was seeking. But
okay.
Yeah. Do we want to jump in? Any other introductory thoughts?
Well, I guess so. We kind of talked about challenges. Did you guys run into any challenges besides just reading books that weren't great, Dan? Or...
Well, that was the challenge. Like when you get about 3 hours into a book before you realize that it's really a bad story that you don't want to finish, it's like you're already committed, and I'm not going to do the calculations of how many pages I read, so I'm going to finish this book. And then like a couple of them really just dragged on, and I'm just like, can we finish this book so I can stop listening to it? And it made me not want to do it anymore. But I pushed through, and it was sort of a bit of a torture a couple times.
Yeah, I had some of that also, where I listened to a book called Why We Make Things and Why It Matters. And it's a guy that's like a fancy furniture maker talking about how like hand working, it's a hobby that you build something productive can be really beneficial for people. But more than half of the book was basically his life story and like not related to making things or any of that. It's just like, this is not what I signed up for when I picked up this book. Like uh, some of your life story may color some of the stuff, but like just make your case. This doesn't need to be an autobiography. But at that point, I was in the same boat where like I had committed to finishing the book, so I was like, okay, let's hear about your divorce and how your various business endeavors shook out. I think that the pot committed aspect of a book is a real thing.
Yeah, well, especially in this case because you're counting all the pages,
And I mean, there is a satisfaction to finishing a book.
Yeah,
And if you've gotten
Yeah.
like halfway there and you're like, well, I just well, just get it, just finish it, right? So
yeah,
there's an element of wanting to push through,
yeah. Get her done, as Larry the Cable Guy would say.
right?
He's a big reader, as I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed was I I kind of bounced between books, so I didn't like start one and then finish that same one. I like had started a couple, and then at one point I had finished two of them in one day, and I finished the one that was just like a fantasy novel, and that was enjoyable. It was a good book, and I was like, after you finish a book, you've got kind of the reflective period where you're like thinking about it and like kind of chewing on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I had that, and then I finished the other book, which was just like a fiction novel about like a teenager and his uncle doing like ghost hunting as like a kind of a coming of age story sort of thing. But it also ended up being like super depressing. So I kind of like ruined the feel good, happy feeling of finishing the fantasy book by finishing that other one afterwards. And I was like, oh, now I feel bad. And I ruined finishing the good book. So
Yeah, there's two books I read that were just awful, and I just remember wait like I was getting angry at how much I hated listening to it, and I would stop doing what I was doing. I just watched I would be watching like the timer basically count down, and when it
Oh
finished, I
no,
would just I would turn it
that's not
off,
how you want to
close
do it.
out of Spotify, just be like, "Oh, that was awful. I hate this." Like that's I don't know if I've ever had that. I don't think I've ever finished a book that I hated before.
yeah.
This might be the first time I've ever done that. Like I have a lot of books that I get maybe a quarter of the way in and realize that I'm not going to enjoy it. But this time I pushed through, and it was not satisfying at all. It made me mad that I had finished it.
I did do one called the Pioneers. It was kind of a historical nonfiction, and it was really good. I read about like 70% of it, and then it just like it ran out of gas, and then like all of the interesting stuff had been covered, and it was just like I realized that there was like another like 4 hours of book left, and there was just nothing interesting happening. So I'm like, all right, I've got enough out of this. I'm happy to stop listening. So that one I did pull the plug, and I don't feel bad about it.
Good for you. Yeah, do we want to just talk about the book, what we read?
Yeah.
Might as well. Yeah, so let's tell us what you read and then tell us the total. I'll go first because I'm 100% sure that I lost this.
Okay.
So because of the aforementioned reason. So I started reading Master and Commander. Well, reading. I had somebody read to me Master and Commander. I got through about, oh man, I don't have the. I got through about 300 and I'm kind of trying to do some quick math in my head. I got through about 400 pages of that book. And then on top of that, I've been reading The Witcher, the second book, while I'm in bed, but I don't get very far before I get sleepy. And then I read a bunch of books to my kids. We finished the Boxcar Children, the second book. I forget the name of that one. And then we started another one, which is The Mystery of Surprise Island, I think.
Ooh.
I don't remember the title. Anyway, so we've been reading those. And then I also have been reading some storybooks to Ruby. So my grand total overall is, this is an estimation because I did some math to get it from the Audible book, but it's about 691 pages, 0.1160359. So, so that's my total, and it's not impressive, and I wish I could have done better, but whatever.
Fair enough. I can go next. I'm just gonna run through the books, and then if I have any thoughts or any, I'll explain what the book was and then the page count. So I mentioned I read Why We Make Things and Why It Matters. That was 176 pages. Before the challenge had started, I had started re-listening to The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So I picked up where I had started on that challenge and tracked from there. And then I finished that. So that was a total of 332 pages. I read Smarter, Faster, Better. It's kind of a nonfiction, self-help, self-improvement kind of thing. And that was 368 pages. I read The Art of Hygge, Decoding Danish Secrets to Unlock the Key to Health and Mindfulness in Daily Life. And that was really fun and interesting. It was 178 pages, but basically the premise of it is like, we contemplated doing a challenge of like be the most relaxed that you can be, and it turns out that the Danes have this kind of down to a science. This whole book was about like how to create an environment and activities and processes to relax. Like the Hygge is basically just like it's like coziness turned up to 11.
Hygge.
Yeah, it's spelled Hygge, and it's not a word that we have in America. But one of my favorite quote from the book was they're talking about like interior design and like how to have at least one room or one place where you can sit and read or like drink coffee or whatever. And he said that the Danes tend to design or like decorate their rooms with like wood and leather and kind of, earthy tones. And he said as a guiding principle, you should ask yourself, how would a Viking squirrel furnish a living room?
Okay. Okay.
And I thought that was fun. So it's got some good ideas from there. Maybe some things that'll make it into future challenges. All right, then the next book was it's called Saturday Night Ghost Club. That was the book that I mentioned as like the teen and his uncle kind of, investigating ghosts or whatever. That was 206 pages. It turned out to be real depressing. And I made a note that turns out even in a book about a club for believing in ghosts, ghosts still aren't real. So then I read, so I don't know if this is, detracts points or not, but I reread a book. So probably like 10 years ago, I read a book called Theft of Swords, which is the fantasy book. And I reread that from start to finish during this challenge because it had been so long and I'd utterly forgotten all of it. And I found that was very enjoyable, given that I had read it before, but I remembered like zero of it other than the two main characters. So I got like essentially the same level of enjoyment, which I have not spent a lot of time rereading books. And I think I might start doing that because it is interesting rereading something that you enjoyed a lot the first time and seeing how your perceptions change. So far, the remembrance holds up. So that one was 694 pages. Then I went on to the second one in that series, and I got 465 pages into that. That's where I kind of ended up on that one or that series. I read a book called Video Game Storytelling, which is apt for the game we're making. It's just kind of going over narrative structures and things you can do in video games. That one was 210 pages. And then I read The Pioneers. The book I mentioned is kind of a historical nonfiction about the settling of the Ohio Territory and the actually late 1700s, people moving out west and establishing lives on the frontier, which is really interesting. But like I said, just kind of ran out of gas. And that one I read 250 pages out of the 350 total. So that, should I give my total final page count?
Yeah.
So my total page count is 2,879 pages.
It's quite a lot of pages.
That's a big number. Also, I was just looking at my tracker here. I wanted to clarify something. I think I said I read 400 and some pages of Master and Commander. That is incorrect. I read 240. I don't think the book's even that long.
Okay, I was gonna say that must be a really long book.
No, it's not. So it doesn't change my total, but that was.
All right. Well, let me tell you what I did. So first book I did was the Audible book. It was a Warhammer 40K book, super dense, called First and Only Gaunt's Ghosts, book 1. It was actually probably the best book that I read out of all of these. It was really, really well written, and it's like really intense and dark and like world building, and like, I don't know, 40K universe is super interesting, and like deeply disturbing in many ways, but it's really, really, really fun to read. And it's like just like war and gore and fighting and stuff. That was great. That was 416 pages. And then it kind of took a nosedive. I listened to the Wolven Mark, and then quickly followed by Savior's Spell, which both were the werewolf romance thing, and where it's like two people. You ever read a romance novel?
I can't say that I have.
I have once when I was in the Marine Corps, and if some people may remember that there was a thing called the swine flu at one point, and I had a roommate because I was living in the barracks, and I got pulled out of. I was going to go on the rifle range to qualify, and I got pulled out of that because he came back from leave and started showing symptoms of an illness. So I had to quarantine for a couple days. And I like stopped by the library that day and like picked up some fantasy novels or whatever to read. And one of them was a fantasy novel, but it turned out it was more of a romance fantasy novel. And I was in quarantine, and I was there for like over a week. I'm like, well, these are the books I have, so yes, that's the only romance book I've ever read, and it was fine.
It's like at least these ones that I read. I'm sure there's some more saucy ones, but it's like it's the most frustrating thing in the world, where it's like these two people, they're like about to kiss, and then they get interrupted, and then like things start to get hot and heavy, and then oh no, I'm just, my mind is distracted, or like I start crying, or it's like always they're about to like admit their love, and then something happens or they can't do it, and that's the whole book, and the whole time it's so frustrating. And then one of them is like this Harry Potter / Twilight thing going on, where they're in like college campus. I don't know if that's your thing, go for it, but I was not having a great time with those. I guess the Wolven Mark, it was written really well. Like, you got to know the characters pretty well, but just like the plot was so frustrating. But one of those was really long, 406 pages. The other one was 246 pages. And then I just listened to this other one called Slave Warrior Queen, which had a really cool cover art. And that was fine. It's just like about a woman who was a slave and then became a warrior, and then I assume in a later book becomes a queen. I don't know.
It's just like when they're like coming up with the name of the book, like, what should we name this? Like, I don't know. What are 3 dramatic words?
It's like, what if you just like, that's just how we like titled every book? Like Harry Potter would be like outcast, student, wizard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Action, danger, king.
But that one, I would say that was fine. It was kind of another, I feel like it was meant for like teenagers, kind of another romancy type of thing, but it was I'd say fine. It was 191 pages. And then I listened to Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, which is something I've wanted to listen to for a while, and that was a trip, and it was awesome. But it was only 70 pages, but I loved it. It was so weird. You ever listen to that or read that?
Yeah, I read it in high school.
It's awesome. I loved it. And And then the next one was it was like a compilation of H.P. Lovecraft stories, 7 stories by H.P. Lovecraft, which are always great. It was actually 7 that I had never read before. So that's another 191 pages. And then because every single place you type in free audiobook, they recommend Alice in Wonderland. I listened to Alice in Wonderland and also Through the Looking Glass, which were just fun little journeys. That's like a total of 312 pages with those 2 books. And then the final one was a Dean Koontz book. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He does kind of horror suspense stuff. And I remember reading some of his stuff when I was younger, thinking it was pretty good. But this was probably the worst book I read. It was so bad. And it was also the longest. It was 571 pages. And I don't know.
Which one was it?
It's a really, really recent one.
Okay.
I don't know. It's about like a woman who lives like on an island, who like bought an island by herself, and then there's like a secret government lab with like an alien kind of thing, with like that's sort of starting like I don't know, like a blob almost, like a mind control thing, hive mind kind of thing. But the thing is, like all of like the climax of the monster ended like halfway through the book. And then like the rest of the book was them like running from the government with the like it was so boring and it just dragged out. The book could have been like, I would say like a third of the length that it was. But like that's the one where I was just like I was just so mad that I was listening to it. And I was just like, the story is over. What are we doing? And it just kept going and going and going. And the ending wasn't even like sad. I don't remember what the ending was, because I think I was so frustrated and it was not satisfying. And I remember it ended and I just said to myself, that was horrible. I did not enjoy that. But that was, 571 pages. So my total is 2,403 pages.
Nice.
So
nice.
Travis took it.
Sweet.
You're a big winner, Travis. And I'm a big loser. That's okay.
And I'm noticing that, Travis, you have a very different taste in books than I do.
I would say it's a wide net that Travis casts for his books there.
I mean, I tend to like, I don't know. Like I said, I tried to expand or, read widely as part of this challenge, but I try to sample widely when possible. I mean, I've read the things you mentioned. I mean, probably not as much werewolf romance as you, Dan, but
give it a shot,
I've read some Lovecraft. I've read Metamorphosis. I have read 1 or 2 Dean Koontz. There was like a couple years ago I read Dean Koontz has, I think, a series about like a modern day Frankenstein ripoff kind of thing. And I read the first one of those and like that was okay. And there's a second one, so I bought that one and read that, like, oh, we're just gonna do the same thing we did in the first book, huh? So I just stopped and did not read any other Dean Koontz.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with that. I was kind of excited that it, like, I had a whole free book, but it's maybe there's a reason that it's free.
Yeah. Sometimes those big authors, like, all their hits, but then they got a lot of garbage as well,
Yeah.
One person I would say that I have not experienced that with is Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park and like all the movies. He writes all the movies.
All the good ones.
Does he write the movies?
No.
He assists, I believe, in the screenplays. He's on like the, in there somewhere.
A producer credit or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I did notice as part of, like, because I enjoyed every moment of reading the like 694 page fantasy books, like the tomes of like fantasy novels. And I was happy to read every one of those pages. But like I said, the Why We Make Things and Why It Matters was 176 pages, and that was a slog to get through. I think, like, when doing nonfiction, especially when you, like, if the title of your book is, like, gives the impression of like, here's a concise thing. Like, I'm going to teach you something about this thing. If that's the title of your book, and then you chalk that thing full of irrelevant, historical facts about you and your family and your dreams, like that is a bait and switch, and I'm not here for that.
Well, the
So
author probably thought it was really, really interesting because that's all
Yeah.
about them.
yeah,
Yep.
I think what's the lesson we learned here? Like, don't waste your time with garbage books because there's a lot of them out there.
yeah,
Or
I
maybe
think.
focus on the good ones.
Well, I think there's a don't become pot committed, right? The sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah,
That's a real thing, right? You should be able to pull the plug and say
that's
this is
right.
not for me. Chuck
Yeah,
that book right in the garbage can or
yeah.
recycling, I guess.
yeah. I will say the Saturday Night Ghost Club that I read, it was like such a cool premise, and it had so much potential, and I kept waiting for it to like turn a corner and get good, and then it just ended in a really depressing way, and like really was. I wish that I would have quit, like, I don't know, a quarter of the way through the book, because like that's when it was at its high, and it just got worse from there. So maybe I would have been better off had I just like pulled the plug and like, nope, that is an okay book, or I don't know. I think you're right. We should, there's no stigma at dropping a book when it's not good enough. There's too many other good books that you can be reading. Don't waste your
Yeah,
time.
yeah. There's so much good stuff. Yeah, there's probably a lot more bad stuff out there. It's really
Yeah.
easy to write a bad book, but a little more
Yeah.
difficult to write a good book, I imagine.
And
Yeah.
I imagine with the like self-publishing and like e novels and that, like, they're like, it has never been easier in the history of the world to put out bad novels or just bad books.
It's a
It's true.
minefield out there.
How would you guys rate this? 1 to 10, worth your time? I think for me personally, I think this is it is like a 7, maybe an 8. I love reading books, but I feel like I wasn't able to dive headfirst into this one. So I think I might do this challenge just by myself, like in the next coming weeks when I'm less busy. So,
I
but
think
yeah,
if you do it correctly, not the way that we did it, where you just force yourself to listen to whatever you pick. I think if you listen
yeah,
to good books, I think it's a 10. Like, books are what are the spice of life or something. There's a turn of phrase
yeah,
for
that
that.
sounds
I think
right.
I think that's variety, but
Yeah,
books are good too.
yeah.
I would agree. I don't know. I mean, it may not come as a surprise, but I'm a big fan of books, and I think that, like, while reading I think it was the Smarter, Faster, Better thing, I was struck by the thought of, like, books are really fascinating in that, I don't know, I didn't mark any points for this, but I listened to a little bit of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosopher and Roman, I forget what title it was, but anyway, he has a
Caesar.
book where, yeah, basically his diary was like saved and like translated, and it turned into a manifesto for Stoic philosophy. I listened to some of that, and I was struck by how like mind-boggling it is that like a guy like thousands of years ago just like wrote down some thoughts, some things that occurred in his brain, and he wrote them down on a piece of paper, and then that was like transcribed and saved and like put into a format so that I can digest it, and like just by like having the words presented to me, it can like literally change the structure of my brain. We're like, just like it's like a Vulcan mind meld, like his brain to my brain. And like that's, I mean, the power of like books and ideas and stuff. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
that's very high level, but
Yeah.
it is amazing what information you can have access to if you just look around for
Well,
it
I mean,
and
when
put
you
yourself
think
up to
about
it.
it, like language, and like even like like spoken language or written language is like magic in a lot of ways. Like I have this weird, like, my brain electricity has this, somehow forms a thought, and then using flapping my meat flaps together, making sound, that enter your weird little meat things in your ears, gets the electricity in your brain that creates the same idea, or
Yeah,
maybe interpreted slightly different. Like, I mean, how is that? That's like a magical thing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's bizarre, and especially now that we have like all these extra steps of electricity and like recorded audio that's translated from ink on paper. I don't know. When you get down to what it actually is, it's pretty crazy type of thing.
Well, I mean, it's literally true that ideas and concepts and things that you are exposed to can change the structure of your brain. Like there are like physical changes that occur in your brain based on the ideas and stuff that you take in. Like it's so crazy that like this big thing that we carry around at the top of our heads, and like we always think like, I don't know, the brain itself is weird, and I don't want to get too off track. But I had like a real Keanu Reeves like whoa moment. So yeah, books are great. I think this challenge, I would put it at a 9, 10. I think I'll reserve 10s for things that surprised me. I think this one, yeah, you know that books are good for you, and if you can make them a part of your life, I think like audiobooks are like revolutionary.
Yeah.
If you have a means of getting an audiobook, like you can get the ideas and the enjoyment of reading a book while also doing other stuff.
Yeah, so, yeah. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine who has a master's in English, and he's actually written a number of books, and he's even had publishers publish some of his books and stuff. And I told him like I'm reading books. He's like, "Oh, that's great." And I told him I was doing audiobooks, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know about that. Like, I feel like it's cheating, you know." But I don't think it's cheating. But also, he hasn't like read a book in like 2 years. You know what I mean? Because he can't sit down and read a book. But if I listen to an audiobook, I can do it at any time.
Yeah, that seems strange. Like better to not read at all than to have a book read to you.
Yeah.
I'm a purist.
I mean, I think that the audiobook kind of is like a continuum of like the classical way of, you know, spreading knowledge through the ages. You know, it's kind of like the oral traditions. That's how it used to work, baby. That's like
true.
you know, yeah. And in fact, back in the day, some of the famous authors, I forget who, I want to say it was like, who's the guy like did like Huckleberry Finn?
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain. Like he'd go on book tours, like he sold his books, but he actually like he'd go around and like read his entire book. I don't think it was Mark Twain, it was somebody else. But like that's how it worked. So like the point of a lot of these books was to be read to people, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean the concept of prose, right? Like beautiful language. I think oftentimes like what we consider as good prose is derived from what sounds good when read aloud.
Yeah.
Because like some of it is like you can read it quietly and you can get some of the effect, but I think a lot of what has turned into what we consider good prose is the you know how things sound when spoken.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would agree with that. And also, I forgot to mention this. I at the beginning of the first half of this, I think I mentioned that I listened to books at the like 1.2 speed. I bumped it up to 1.5 speed for this challenge. And initially, my brain is like, this sounds a little bit like the Chipmunks. But then after like 30 seconds, your brain just adjusts, and then it's like, it's normal and fine. And like, I lost no comprehension. I fully understood as much as I ever do listening to anything. Like I noticed no difference after bumping it up to 1.5, which I thought was just amazing that our brains are like, I mean, our brains can intake information faster than we think about. So
dang, I should have done that because I probably would have beat you then.
Probably, yeah. So yeah, pro tip, I guess. I honestly don't think that I'll go back. I think I'll stay on 1.5 because you can like burn through books way faster.
Yeah.
And you can get just as much out of it.
I tend to hang out around 1.2. That's what I shoot for.
And some of those like the people reading them really kind of drag it out pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the continuing with what we were saying, they try to really relish the spoken with like deliverance and gravitas and whatever. Like, you know, some of that's cool, but at the same time, like, come on, man, just get on with it.
I noticed that one of the books, The Woven Mark, I believe it was I feel like it was definitely self-published, and I feel like they just found somebody who was willing to read it, because I've never heard. Actually, it was really interesting. It was two people, and now this is like 2 weeks ago when I did this one, but it was two different people reading the book. One of them, because it kept switching between the woman and the guy. But the guy kept like mispronouncing a lot of the words. It was like, and it took me completely out of it. Like the guy, I don't know where this guy was coming from and why nobody corrected him, but he mispronounced a lot of words.
Listening to The Fellowship of the Ring, like Tolkien put a lot of poetry and songs in his books. So the guy reading the book to me would have to then sing the poem or whatever. So I'd be listening to a book and then I'd just have a guy singing to me for a minute or two.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it's sort of distracting though when you're listening to a book and then music starts.
Oh, they actually had music?
No, but like he's singing a song a cappella basically.
Oh.
I don't know if I'd be into that.
I don't know if
I was not crazy about it. No. In fact, I remember when I read Lord of the Rings in high school, I would just like, okay, I can skip past this page.
That's what I did the same thing. Now presenting the Lexiconquistador, Travis Brabant.
All right, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Mike. Thanks everybody for listening. This challenge was great. This is sort of a selfish one in that obviously we knew that we could enjoy books, but it's good to take time to do things that you enjoy also when considering self-improvement opportunities. If you haven't read a book in a long time, you should definitely do that. Find a book that you might enjoy and give it a shot. And if you get a couple, 20 pages in and you're not enjoying it, don't feel bad. Return it, drop it, get rid of it, and try a different one. There's too many good books out there to waste time on the bad ones. So go read a book, you filthy animals.
You did great.
Next time on Perpetual Incompetence. What do you guys think of birds?
I am for them, pro birds.
I'm anti-bird.
Okay, interesting.
Controversy.
Also, next time on Perpetual Incompetence.
Most documentaries consumed, and then best fact